Hello?
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 Hello? Oh, Discord was muted.
The first thing I said, is something muted? Because
Yeah.
the call seems to be working perfectly over here.
Weird.
Yeah, definitely weird. Definitely not fucking stupid.
I don't know why I was muted. Why would I mute Discord?
Well, I don't know. Probably our last episode.
Yeah, probably it was just like, Jesus, I just need some way that I don't have to hear this guy fucking talking anymore.
Yeah, I hate Kyle
Just-
too.
Yeah, that was it. It was Carl.
Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode. Usually I say edition, but I'm keeping you on your toes. I said episode this time of Heavy Hands. I'm Connor Rebush. Phil Mcdessey is here. Kyle McLaughlin is dead. Phil, how you doing? Morning?
No, just relieved. Well, actually, no. I'm not relieved.
Just relieved.
I mean, I was gonna say that, like, it's gonna be living in, I was gonna be living in relief that, like, Carl was never gonna come after me again, but then I remembered, he doesn't come after me, he comes after you.
Yeah, he's really an ally of yours.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the day that I die, you and Kyle will obviously live to destroy each other, but you have a common enemy.
Yeah, exactly. Coming across the divides in British society to unite against our common enemy, filthy Yanks.
The Yanks. So anyway, RIP. Welcome to Heavy Hands, everyone. We've got a mixed bag episode for you here today, by which I really just mean not entirely UFC stuff. Demetrious Johnson had a fight last weekend, a rematch with Adriano, who, of course, knocked him out, surprisingly, in their first meeting. Solid fight, extremely cool finish. It says a lot when I say that it stacks up with Demetrious Johnson's coolest moments. So we're going to talk about that towards the end, and then otherwise, on the UFC front, we do have a card. We've got Tai Tuivasa taking on Cyril Gane for a crucially important heavyweight contenders fight, which Phil is sort of well, I guess really you aren't trying to like make me care. We're both like, we care. But we don't know what to make of like Tai Tuivasa, basically, is what it comes down to. But it's not a bad card. We've got Robert Whittaker versus Marvin Vittori in the co-main event slot. Very interesting. We've got opening the main card, Charles Jourdain versus Nathaniel Wood. We're going to talk about that. We're going to try to touch on another main card fight, John Mcdessey versus Nasrat Hockbrost. I think that's a cool little crossroads, make or break kind of matchup for Hakaperost. Could be a depressing one where Mcdessey gets knocked out. Could be, a hope-inspiring one where the old veteran does it again and just outfoxes this young brute. We've got Imavov versus Buckley. Not a bad card all around. For a fight night card, pretty solid. So, should we talk about the main event?
Yeah, let's jump in. I mean, one of the things about this one which makes it, a little hard to get too excited about is that this really nominally is would be a kind of title eliminator kind of bout, which I guess is why it's the main event. But I think everyone knows that that's not happening anytime soon, because the heavyweight division has been completely moribund of bookings, and that there's something going on with Stipe and Jones and Ngannou, and no one knows what it is.
Is there?
I mean, as in, they're talking to them. I'm not saying that any of them have been booked into it. But the UFC and Ngannou are well, no one is basically willing to move. So nothing below them is moving. So, whoever wins this gets to be, I guess, number one in line for whatever happens after that, which will presumably take 2 years to resolve.
I mean, let's put it this way. It's surprising this isn't for an interim belt.
Yeah, I mean, that's simply because they have 3 fighters to resolve things between.
Yeah.
The minute they can book at least one of them in, there will be, it will be interim belt time.
Yeah, if they get like Jones versus Stipe or something, yeah. Which, I've maintained from day one, Phil, isn't going to happen. John Jones will never fight at heavyweight. And I'd be more than happy to be proven wrong, because I'm not confident at all that he would do well there. But my feeling from day one has been he thinks the same thing. He's not going to do it. He does not want to fight his big brothers all over again. That's not why he got into combat sports.
Uh-huh.
He got into combat sports to take out the rage of not being able to beat up his bigger, stronger brothers. So, it ain't happening. I'm still convinced of that. And, I've been vindicated so far. It's been about, 32 years John Jones has been talking about. Exactly the number of years I've been alive. And it has yet to actually take place. So anyway, we have this as sort of, they are contenders. You can't deny that.
Yeah, I mean, so John had a close, terrible fight with the champion, and other than that, is undefeated. Tai Tuivasa has a fairly credible streak going.
Fairly credible-ish.
And, that's as good as we're going to get. And they both have done things which people like at points.
Yeah, I like both these guys. I mean, no reason to dislike either of them. Okay, so why is Tai Tuivasa not just going to get sort of slowly picked apart by Cyril Gane in a, kind of interesting and impressive but mostly slow 5-round heavyweight fight? Explain why that's not...
I mean, I think the main thing is that because he might get finished, I think is the probable clarification I would offer there.
That Tai might get finished?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Because, I mean, really, I think the thing is that with the kind of fun of the Tai Tuivasa run, it really does feel like people are looking at sort of recapturing the entertainment of that, Rally for Mark Hunt era when he was on his way to, he eventually made his way to like an interim title shot.
Nothing will ever be that good again. Still one of my favorite arcs in the entire history of my MMA fandom was the Rally for Hunt.
It was great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the main thing is that like Tai Tuivasa is not Mark Hunt.
No.
He will probably never be Mark Hunt. I think the benefits are like the advantages he has over Mark Hunt is that he is someone who got into MMA earlier and has taken it more seriously than Mark Hunt did.
Yeah, that's why he's so much better on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, okay.
Some advantage.
I would... I mean, comparing him to the era of Mark Hunt, yes, he is better than Mark Hunt.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
He is a better wrestler.
That's true.
Like, I mean, he's had his own weird, like losses to grapplers, but it was to like Sergey Spivak is a genuinely quite good heavyweight wrestler. It's not like getting tapped out like by who's your nemesis on Twitter? Sean McCorkle? Sorry, one of them.
My nemesis? He's my best friend. We're in each other's DMs every day.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to arrange a date with my dad.
Yeah, but he never got tapped out by the equivalent of Sean McCorkle.
That's
what
true.
I'm saying.
That's true. Yeah.
But on the other hand, so he's a more serious MMA fighter from an earlier age and so on. But he's also less durable and just much slower than Mark Hunt. Mark Hunt was a very, very quick fighter, deceptively so, and could play with speed in a way which I don't think Tuivasa can. He's just like Tuivasa is really all the things that people sort of thought Mark Hunt was, I guess.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. He's got a marginally broader, but also significantly shallower skill set than Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he lacks the particular physical attributes that gave Mark Hunt that like last gasp of his career, which were incredible durability and shocking heavyweight speed. Would just be on top of somebody and hit them with a shot they never saw coming. And then skill wise, yeah, he's got again, somewhat better wrestling and grappling base. Considerably better if you're talking early MMA Mark Hunt. Kind of on par with late career Mark Hunt. Like, yeah, in fact, like more or less exactly on par. Maybe even lacking some of the scrambling ability that Mark Hunt developed late in his career. Again, because of the athletic difference. But as a striker, he doesn't have Mark Hunt's craft. I'll say that much. He doesn't have the defense. He doesn't have the tricky counters. He doesn't have the interesting little changes in timing. He's not a bad striker. He's better than a lot of heavyweight strikers, simply because he can throw a jab and put combinations together. That his left hook comes after his right hand. I mean, it's a low bar at heavyweight, and he does exceed it, no doubt. But yeah, he's a bruiser. He's like a pretty good bruiser, and that's more or less it. I guess he's got the clinch too, which could be an interesting aspect of this fight. We'll talk about that. But yeah, like, he's gonna get picked apart, right? Like, that's what Cyril Gahn does. He's not as fast as Mark Hunt. He's more hittable. He's more hurtable. Like, he's just gonna get kicked in the legs and follow Cyril Gahn around the huge octagon.
Yeah. I think that's the real key here, is that there's obviously some vulnerabilities to Gahn's style, that he's just, as we've said many times, height as defense and length as defense, and that if you chase him out of the pocket, you can certainly catch him just moving straight backwards. Mm-hmm. I just don't trust Tuivasa to be able to cover space to do that.
Right.
Yeah, there's the fact that Tuivasa's been hurt in several of his fights where he's won. Often his success has been due to the fact that his opponents have hurt him, and that then they've tried to follow up and he's deaded them.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'll say this.
Happened against
his brand of durability does speak to another thing that I failed to mention. Another advantage over Mark Hunt throughout much of his career. Pretty good conditioning for a heavyweight. Which is a somewhat interesting factor to bring in against Cyril Gahn, because that's one of his main advantages in most of these fights, is that he just doesn't wear out easily. So, Tai Tuivasa can get hurt and not just be dead tired. He's had plenty of fights that are protracted where he's still trying. So, I don't know. Is that anything?
I mean, one of the things I don't really trust, I don't really expect Gahn to do, is to make himself vulnerable when he has his opponent hurt.
Exactly, yeah.
He will just stay there and continue begging. He'll finish people, but he won't just go ham like Derek Lewis or Greg Hardy would.
He did have his own fight with Derek Lewis, where he made a statement and went a little wild, and it didn't look good. You can kind of see why he doesn't do it more often.
Yeah.
He would like it to be clean when he finishes someone.
But he also won that fight really easily.
Absolutely.
Whereas Tuivasa had got into significant trouble. The other thing, the clinch. I think Gahn is good there. He's good, and he's much bigger.
Yeah.
Or at least, and he has a tall man's clinch. He works kind of knees and elbows from the inside. That was really what allowed Tuivasa to finish Lewis. Mm-hmm. Was just landing an elbow on the clinch break. I mean, I just don't think it's a good fight for Tuivasa, really.
I have to agree.
If he needs some of those Mark Hunt things, he needs to be able to, if he's going to have Gahn poking at him from range, he needs to be able to suddenly shock him with his rhythm and his speed. He needs the durability. He needs to be able to close the distance. I'm just not sure he can do any of that.
Yeah.
I think, as you said, I think Gahn's going to pick him apart. Whereas I think I think Garn probably would pick Mark Hunt apart at most points of their respective primes that they would fight each other, but there would be much more of a risk that something would happen from Mark Hunt to suddenly change it.
Exactly. Mark Hunt has the ability to come up with a solution again, to exploit those what are largely very situational weaknesses in Cyril Gahn's game, where you feint your way in, you get him to start resetting, and then you rush in and you shock the hell out of him and clip him when he's not ready. That is not really Tai Tuivasa's style, nor does it align with his physical abilities. I mean, it's heavyweight; the two are often one and the same.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Is that you did get the impression people thought Mark Hunt was just this crazy Samoan brawler,
right? Which there's an aspect. There's a heavy aspect of that.
Yeah, he was much more crafty and athletic than he was given credit for. Whereas I think Tuivasa just kind of is that. He's what people thought Mark Hunt was.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, so Cyril Gahn, right?
Yep. I think I'll take him by via finish. I mean, as I said, Tuivasa gets hurt quite a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the Debbie Downer here and say I think Cyril Gahn went wild against Derek Lewis because he specifically wanted to make a statement. Maybe that will encourage him here, but he got into Derek Lewis's fight only when it suited him, right? Otherwise he had to pick Derek apart first. And I just have the feeling Tuivasa can take single clean strikes. It is in messy exchanges when he himself gets hurt and when he hurts other people. I just kind of think Cyril is just going to land a bunch of jabs and low kicks, and Tai is going to follow him around, and that'll happen for 25 minutes.
Yeah. One thing I am morbidly curious about is that Gahn's always been one to shoot takedowns.
Oh, I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, he got out-wrestled in his last fight. So I'm curious if we see, quote-unquote, well-rounded Cyril Gahn here. And that even when Tuivasa tries to chase him, if he just shoots on him.
Yeah, it being heavyweight, I mean, there's a possibility either, because Tai will also shoot on people. Mm-hmm. He will just mash into them in the clinch, and he'll think about double legs, and who knows. Honestly, I wouldn't be too shocked if either guy got a takedown and the fight became very weird for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I think I'd trust Gahn off his back more than I trust Tuivasa, to be honest, as well.
Yeah, I guess.
Remember the JDS fight.
Oh yeah, no, I don't trust. My hesitation is not that I trust Tai Tuivasa off his back at all. I just don't know how much I trust Cyril Gahn there. But I trust him to probably have maybe better timing on some similarly sloppy takedowns, and yeah, again, he does have that athletic ability to just sort of create explosions and scrambles and get to good positions suddenly before Tai can even react, that Tai just doesn't have. So even if he gets on top, I don't know how dynamic a threat Tuivasa will really be on the ground. Okay. Well, that's it. I hope it's good.
Yeah.
I hope it's
sure
good.
It will be.
I appreciate your confidence, Phil. Let's take a break. That's 16, 17 minutes or so. That's more than enough. I honestly think the really interesting fights are coming up after this. Robert Whittaker versus Marvin Vittori, John Mcdessey versus Nasrat Hakaperost, Charles Jourdain versus Nathaniel Wood. All very compelling fights for me. So we're going to try and touch on all of them. One of them is probably going to get short shrift. It'll probably be Mcdessey Hockbrost because it's a very straightforward dynamic, but I think a very entertaining one. But we're going to touch on all that we can from the rest of this undercard. And then at the end of the episode, Demetrious Johnson versus Adriano Moraes. All of that after this.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to this week's Heavy Hands. If you like what you hear, please consider pledging to support the podcast on Patreon. Patreon is basically continuous crowdfunding. You sign up to contribute a certain amount per month to help us with production costs and the like, and in return you get rewards ranging from a mention on the Heavy Hands website to a question or topic of your choice being discussed on the show. We have a lot more in the works to reward you for your help, and we appreciate every contribution. No amount is too small. Just head over to patreon.com and find how you can help out, the only show dedicated to the finer points of face punching. Now let's get back to it.
All right, welcome back to Heavy Hands. The co-main event, we just sort of started discussing it, Phil, and it occurred to me that as a fight, it's maybe quite similar to the main event as an actual style matchup, and maybe the draw for me here is purely personal bias that like I like Robert Whittaker. Mm-hmm. I want to see him fight anybody.
Nah, it's not just personal bias. It's that he's
an element.
You know, just want to see. Yeah, but you just want to see elite fighters, like fighting. He's just entertaining to watch in a way that, you know, Cyril Gane is simply someone where you're like, if he's executing on someone, you just find yourself thinking, other people have mostly done this better at lighter weight classes, but Bobby Knuckles is really a very, you know, he's a very unique combinations of like skills and traits that you don't really get anywhere else.
True, that's true. Okay, I can feel better about my obviously biased feeling that this is somehow a better fight than the main event.
I mean, it is a better fight than the main event.
Thank you. Yes, I agree.
I mean, you know, Marvin Vittori is one of these guys. I mean, okay, so let's start from the beginning. I think the fairly straightforward assumption is that Robert Whittaker is just going to win, absent him suddenly falling off a cliff.
Yeah.
Because he is better than Marvin Vittori. And I don't think we're probably going to deviate from that assertion much over the course of this.
Yeah.
Over the course of the breakdown. But I will say, like, Vittori is one of those guys that you get in almost like every division. Like, it's just very hard to look genuinely good against him.
That's true.
Because he's immortal, and he keeps a pretty high pace up, and he can handle himself pretty much everywhere. He's just going to be there for 5 difficult rounds.
Yeah, I mean, on the other hand, that means he has the potential to be a guy that you can look really good against.
Has anyone ever looked really good against Marvin Vittori?
Israel Adesanya in their first fight.
He looked pretty good.
He looked very good. It
was definitely his whiz. I mean, it was...
You're right, actually. He did have the very messy...
Up until the Bobby Knuckles rematch, that was the worst fight of Adesanya's UFC career.
You're right. He did have that really messy third round where Vittori started wrestling him, and it all kind of went to shit. Okay, fair enough. He had some incredible highlights against Vittori and styled on him for portions. But yeah, you're right. It did become a weird, messy fight that didn't... you know, it was no Paulo Costa, or like, it wasn't the Brad Tavares fight. That's probably the most uniformly impressive performance Israel's had.
Yeah, that was his real like coming out party.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, and Vittori has become an increasingly decent striker. I think he looked good in the Paulo Costa fight.
I totally agree. Defense, counters, his jab was much better. Yeah, he looked. Yeah, honestly, all around a lot more comfortable in the pocket, and showing much better understanding of like how to layer his striking exchanges. He drifted away from being just the endless 1-2 guy, which was nice.
Yep. Yeah, he's gotten much better right there how to work his way in behind things. I think the issue is obviously that, you know, against Adesanya simply denied him the pocket the entire fight.
Yeah.
And Vittori ended up just having to crash inside and then just being stuck in the clinch and then not being able to do anything and then getting pushed outside and outpointed again.
And that isn't, you know what? I'm getting more excited as I realize that isn't going to happen the whole time with Robert Whittaker.
I think the issue with Whittaker is going to be less that he's going to it's going to be less that he's going to be trying to deny the pocket for Vittori, as in that he's just. I think it's going to be more. He's going to be more likely to punish Vittori at any point that he's on the outside.
Yeah.
As in, I do think that with Vittori's ability to kind of work in combination, actually, as I said, be a genuinely good, quite solid offensive pocket boxer, particularly when he's got people backed into the cage. Even in spots against Adesanya in the rematch, when he managed to get Adesanya backed into the cage, and when he hadn't just gotten himself stuck into Adesanya's chest, he was, he had good ideas for how to push Adesanya out of position with his strikes, and then land. It was just the fact that he doesn't hit very hard.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Adesanya still has pretty good defense.
He just didn't get enough of those opportunities to make it work with his level of power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, but with that sort of the fact that he's become more essentially cognizant of what his opponent is doing, I think there's probably what's come with that is that he's now more likely to back out of range and think about how he's coming in. I think that will in turn kind of make him more vulnerable to the Bobby Knuckles blitzes.
Yeah.
Where, Whittaker gets you thinking about whether it's going to be the right hand or the oblique kick, and then, comes in behind the double jab and then kicks you in the head kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's so in some ways I think Vittori's improvements make him more threatening in certain areas of the fight, whilst also the fact that he's learned some measure of caution might actually make him more vulnerable to what Whittaker's doing.
We're going to get some exciting moments. The more I think about it, all things considered, I do expect that Bobby's going to come in with something like the Adesanya approach to start.
Yeah.
I do think he's going to recognize that he's faster, he's lighter on his feet, and he's got a better, much more threatening jab than Vittori. Which is, again, Vittori's jab has always been solid and a presence. And it looked better than ever, no doubt, against Paulo Costa. It's the ways in which he used it defensively, as a setup, as an interruption, as a sort of little half beat to throw in the middle of a longer combination. There was a lot more flexibility, the kind of flexibility you should have in a lead hand, than ever before. But Robert Whittaker's jab is like a genuine weapon. It surprises you. It covers huge distance. It hurts. There's a reason it's such an effective setup for the head kicks and the right hands and everything else. Robert Whittaker has a sharp, powerful jab. And, he's going to use that to kind of keep Vittori at bay, and Vittori's going to stay on top of him. But being Robert Whittaker, he's going to look for those moments when Vittori sort of stops his rhythm and stands there. He's going to look for, Robert Whittaker has always been one of the best feinters in the game. He's going to look to get reactions out of Vittori and then try to pile on with the blitzes. And he is also going to be way more willing, I think, than Izzy to pick his spots to sort of let Vittori into the pocket. Or it may also be the fact that he's not as good and disciplined as Izzy is at negating the pocket fight, that Vittori is going to force his way in at points. And when that happens, Whittaker's going to have to show some of those nasty counters and short punches that he has as well. So I think we're going to get some very exciting exchanges at points, despite the fact that I fully expect Whittaker to come in with a measured game plan. So yeah, I think we're looking at a simmer that slowly boils over.
Yeah, the other part of, Vittori being who he is that his sheer meat-headed consistency makes him, someone who doesn't really have particularly boring fights.
True.
Because he just won't get scared off.
Yeah. They're not all great. Many of them have that sort of, like, a lot of Vittori's fights give me a feeling that I normally associate with, like, women's bantamweight. Where you just sort of have the same exchange over and over again, and, like, nobody can adjust. I like to think we're moving past that with that Costa fight. Again, far and away the best I've ever seen Vittori. But they're not boring. You would never accuse him of having boring fights, so that's fair.
I mean, the only thing is that he just, for whatever reason, he just seems to have no punching power.
Yeah.
If he could genuinely crack, I think he would be like a very dangerous fighter. In
Absolutely.
This division. He'd
be fucking champion. Marvin Vittori has so much going for him. That if he could just put people out with single punches, he would be, like, he literally is unstoppable. So, like, it would be a huge addition to his game. I think it's just a form thing, honestly, with Vittori. He just kind of tends to, like, I think he could develop better punching power. He tends to just push his punches.
Yeah.
He tends to really, like, come forward with his weight too soon in the movement. And then doesn't recover it. It kind of stays over his front foot, and then everything after that first punch becomes arm punches. So while his timing can be good and he'll strike quickly, the form quickly sort of deteriorates, and there's just not like a good, what's the annoying term? Kinetic chain, driving his shots. Robert Whittaker will teach you what it means to throw a punch. Because when Robert Whittaker throws, it literally looks like someone hitting like a fastball pitch. He's flinging his fist at you. That's how you punch with power without having to put muscle into it. Vittori is almost too much of a meathead. He puts muscle into it, and so it's more like a guy trying to shove open a door than it is a guy trying to tear a hole through a sheet of paper. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that sounds very on the money, I think.
Yeah. So, it's a technical thing. Who knows? I mean, you put Vittori with Vittori, hook up with Trevor Whitman. You might become more boring, but he will probably teach you to crack. I think you can do it.
Do I want Marvin Vittori to be
more boring?
Middleweight champion?
Middleweight champion? Well, come on. It would be awesome. The Italian Dream?
Yeah, it would be pretty funny.
The Italian Dream as champion? Come on. Of course you want that. It would be so stupid.
Just to see the expression of grief in Costa's eyes.
Oh my god, yes. There's so many reasons. It would annoy everyone.
Been out meat-headed in every possible way.
Still a very impressive feat. Robert Whittaker. He's going to use his jab. He's going to land lots of kicks. He's going to make Vittori get aggressive, and then he's going to actually have the wherewithal to meet him. And he may end up in trouble in that Vittori will hit him, but it's a very good thing for Bobby that, again, Vittori does not really... He seems far and away the least dangerous guy that Whittaker will have fought in years. So...
Yeah, in some ways, like, ever at middleweight.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, it's been one athletic killer after another, and Vittori just doesn't. He is athletic. He is a killer. But he just doesn't have power, or he doesn't know how to consistently use the power that he has.
Yeah, and I think and switching the narrative a bit, imagine if Vittori's fight against Hermansson, imagine if Hermansson just hit much harder and was just a fundamentally better striker.
Yeah.
Like, that's sort of what you end up with. Like, it was, again, like, that ended up being a ragged, a kind of ragged fight where Vittori was able to outwill and outpunch and, well, frankly, just sort of be more durable than Hermansson.
Yeah.
But I don't think his particular physical gifts are going to be
exactly
decisive against Whittaker, because Whittaker can just force him backwards and win exchanges in a way that Hermansson just couldn't.
Yeah, durability is definitely a good thing to have against Robert Whittaker, but if you don't have enough other things to... It's essentially a defensive skill, And if you don't have the offensive potency to back it up, you stand the risk of losing a fight like the one Kelvin Gastelum lost.
Yeah, or Jared Cannonier, for that matter.
Yeah, although Jared Cannonier did have the power, and it almost resulted in a big turnaround. That's the kind of moment Vittori would need if he's otherwise just going to be sort of a little too predictable, a little too slow, and a little too hittable.
Yep.
Okay. Let's very quickly then touch on, we're going to try and hit those other two fights in this segment. So let's really quickly just say that, I like, oh God. Excuse me. Everyone okay?
Still here?
Okay, great. I like John Mcdessey versus Nasrat Hakaperost. I think this is a good matchup. You, of course, don't like it. Because even though you have no consistency, you have no principles, and your argument that old people should be just like fed to the wolves is completely belied by your reaction to Chito Vera's latest run. You typically don't like matchups like this because it's like, John Mcdessey, it's too likely he's going to win, and he should be learning a lesson here. But I'll tell you what, Phil, I like these matchups. I like when the crafty old fighters get a matchup where their age is a factor, that it makes the fight more dangerous than it would be in their youth, but it is also a very winnable fight where they have a chance to just show off what all those years of experience have given them. I think this is that kind of fight. Hockbrost, dangerous, tough. Maybe everything could be going perfectly and he still just knocks Mcdessey out. But also it seems very likely that this is, I guess, one of three fights at the top of this card where the craftier striker might just be able to consistently pick the heavier hitter apart.
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to pick that to happen, but it obviously could. Like, Mcdessey is one of the few guys who can fight a really crafty, kind of two-handed open stance striking game against a southpaw.
He's going to use his jab and his left hook. You know that.
Yep. He's he can jab, he can left hook, he works his way into his right hand. Skill for skill, he certainly should win this.
Yeah.
But he's 37 years old and he's tiny.
Yeah.
It says that he's only 2 inches shorter than Hakaperost, and I don't believe it.
He might be, but he's going to be like significantly less broad of shoulder. Like, Hockbrost is for sure going to look bigger than him.
Yeah. What's their reach? 72 inches for Hakaperost, 68, so 4 inches.
Yeah, that's pretty significant.
I mean, obviously we've seen Mcdessey beating up on some comical advantages over his time in, his last fight.
Yeah, fucking Bahamondes was a giant compared to him. I mean, literally, I think he missed weight. Bahamondes wasn't even a lightweight at all.
Nope. He missed it by, almost 157, I think.
Yeah. And Mcdessey still somehow managed to look like this is the thing, like, Mcdessey will give you the impression that his reach is way longer than it is. Because he's comfortable in the pocket. He's still one of the best defensive fighters in the sport. And he's got a fantastic jab. He feints well, and he builds off of it. And he will use all of these tools, defense, tricks of timing, feints, and just good techniques to make all that he can out of the range in the fight. But so what? You think you're getting the feeling that Hockbrost is gonna beat him?
Yeah, and just because he's like 20, he's like 10 years younger than him and much bigger.
Yeah,
and he's just a much better fighter. Even without developing at all, he's still just better than Ignacio Bahamondes. Like, even if he just came in on his UFC debut. And I don't know, I just can't trust Mcdessey to keep doing this.
Yeah. I have my doubts, though.
Yeah, I mean, as said, like, we've talked a lot about how Hakaperost has stagnated.
I think
it's
worse
exactly
than
the
that.
kind of fight for him to get stuck on one particular plan.
Yeah.
And to just start chasing him around, chasing Mcdessey around the cage, trying to land one big left hand.
I think my fear is, like stagnation isn't permanent if you continue competing. You can deteriorate. And I do think there's reason to worry that could very well be happening to Hockbrost. That he's now lost 2 in a row. Granted, against quality fighters, but really uninspiring performances. And I gotta wonder if he looked absolutely deflated halfway through that fight with Bobby Green. That's a thing I'd never really seen from Hakaperost before. That he was, his game plan just clearly wasn't working, and he didn't know what to do. And the fight just got worse and worse and worse for him. Like, he just got completely shut out the longer it went on. And, I gotta wonder, what's his level of confidence right now? How good does Mcdessey have to be, skill-wise, to just make Hockbrost realize, oh no, it's happening all over again? That's fighters get PTSD from their fights. It's traumatic shit, combat sports. And competition in general is very stressful, and you have these experiences and then they just haunt you forever. I've seen that happen so many times with fighters. Could fights like the Dan Hooker fight, the Bobby Green fight, be those moments for Hockbrost where it just keeps happening? And every time it happens successively, it feels worse and worse because he already knows and has evidence to prove that's a losing fight. He's going to lose. I don't know. I kind of have a feeling to pick Mcdessey here, even though, obviously it's setting me up for heartbreak.
Yep. It is.
Yeah, I just don't. I'm just not that impressed with Hakaperost's craft, and I don't think he's consistent or disciplined enough to take a lead and then sit on it and control a fight against Mcdessey, who's so crafty.
Yeah. I think, that's fair enough. He's, as I said, Mcdessey is simply a much more skilled fighter than him.
Yeah.
I'm just picking youth and size.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, well, that's enough for that. Let's quickly then touch on our main card opener here. Charles Jourdain versus Nathaniel Wood. Very interesting fight. Charles Jourdain, of course, robbed in his last outing. Not the worst decision I've ever seen, but definitely a bad one. And especially so because it was in many ways the very best he's ever looked. Somehow I keep doing it, Phil. I keep picking these weird little action fighters. I'm like, I like this guy, and then they turn out to be good. I don't know how it happens, but I guess I have an eye for guys that even I don't really expect to get better, and then but it's I think it's because I look at guys and I see moments of craft are the things that really catch my eye. And from the very beginning, Jourdain was like this absolute mess who would throw 97 flying knees every single fight. But every single time by round 3, you'd be like, oh my God, look at that counter. Look at these body shots. Look at these combinations. He's been doing stupid shit the entire time. And then when it really matters, you realize he's been figuring shit out too. And he actually, has a sort of technical flexibility that speaks very highly of him. And, he has just built on that and become more and more that kind of fighter who will just figure his opponents out and drown them down the stretch.
Yeah.
So?
I mean, he really is featherweight's Condit at this point.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And this is an absolute banger of a matchup.
100%.
This is by don't know if we're going to have as much time to talk about it, but this is by a large measure the best fight on this card.
Okay, well, let's fucking do it. I mean, who cares? We had a 2-hour episode last week. Who gives a shit? Tell me all that you want to tell me. What do you like so much about the matchup?
I mean, just that Nathaniel Wood is incapable of having boring fights. He
True.
is, Brad Pickett's protege, and as such has sort of developed into Brad Pickett 2.0 with most of the which made Brad Pickett good, whilst also just being a sort of more cohesive striker, and just a more cohesive striker in general.
Can I hear you say Brad Pickett's protege 5 times fast real quick? That's a tough one.
But yeah, he's also had some problems just getting pushed out of fights, which makes this one, I think, a tricky one for him. Because one of the things I think about Jourdain has been really growing into kind of his frame and his style in the modern featherweight division. Because he again has been kind of often going up the fighting up the physical scale. Mm-hmm. Like he hasn't been like his opponents have either been like bigger and taller than him, like Julian Erosa, or they've just obviously been physically stronger. Mm-hmm. I think we have seen like Jourdain becoming a more physical presence in the division over time. You know, he was bullying Shane Burgos by the end of that fight.
Yeah,
which is not easy to do. And meanwhile, like Wood is a former bantamweight, and he wasn't one of the bantamweights where I looked at him and thought, "Man, this guy is ginormous. How does he make the weight class?"
No. Which I still love that he's gone to featherweight, because like I don't think Wood is a perfect example. I think of a fighter who doesn't scream like incredible athleticism at the smaller division, but as soon as he moves up, you're like, man, this guy's fast.
Yeah.
And granted, Charles Rosa is a more or less blank canvas to demonstrate that difference. But I don't think that's like an erroneous impression I got just because of that matchup. That Nathaniel Wood is going to seem very quick and subtle compared to his earlier run in this division.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this fight interesting, because against Burgos, I think Jourdain was able to kind of build his approaches quite effectively, because Burgos is kind of always in the same place.
Yeah.
But he's able to just chain together, jab, jab, right hand to the body, flying knee, or some other kind of Jourdain-esque combination.
It very much all started with the jab.
Yes, because Burgos is always there to be tracked down.
Yep.
It might be different against someone like Wood, who is himself very mobile and has been actually quite good at beating mobile opponents himself in general.
Yeah, it's true.
Like quite good at corralling them, working low kicks. Like a good wrestler. He hasn't used it that much lately, but he is a good wrestler and top control player as well.
He certainly is. And a great kicker. I mean, that's a big part of the reason I think he's beaten more mobile fighters or similarly mobile fighters. Is that he can be a devastating kicker, but also uses his movement to just kind of dip in and out and draw those kicks out of somebody else. He's also he's a little Bobby Knuckles-ish. Like, he does have that essential aggressiveness where he has all the makings of a slick style, but you can tell what he really wants is to step in and fucking style on somebody in middle distance. And trade shots and like slip and come back with a 3-punch combination counter. Like, I think this is another one where we're going to get some really tactical portions, and we're going to get some explosively violent portions as well.
Yeah. And when pushed, against, in that Casey Kenny fight, which both of us said was, like, it was a super underrated fight. Like, really, really high quality fight.
Excellent fight.
You can also keep a tremendous pace.
True.
Which I think is going to be very important against Jourdain. So we could just get, as I said, this could be an absolute banger. Just because I think if Wood is, perhaps the cut was troubling him more than he let on. I mean, it had to be if he's moving up. But if that was him struggling with a cut, and that was the pace that he was hitting then, then it could be possible that whilst I do kind of, expect Jourdain to push him out of the fight, just based on, I think, work rate and size, and just, the ability to build from range more effectively. If Wood can just hit Jourdain's pace and maintain it, Like, we could get just an absolutely incredible fight.
Oh yeah. No, I actually fully expect Nathaniel Wood. Anything could happen, you know. It's not like Wood's never been hurt or whatever, but I kind of fully expect him to cruise through the first round and look really good. Because Jourdain is like all of my favorite weirdos, like a slow starter. He's one of the slow starters who doesn't fully realize he's a slow starter. He'll go out there and, like, you know, Condit, he will just invite the mess to find out what works and what doesn't. But there is a period of feeling out and figuring out how to defend everything, in which Wood's diversity and movement, I think, is going to be a big problem for him a big hurdle for him to jump over, because Jourdain himself is a solid kicker. Is he a good kick defender? I haven't really seen evidence of that. I mean, I think, again, it's as with all things defensive, Jourdain will kind of figure it out by the time the fight's done. He's totally the kind of guy who will just eat every low kick and then halfway through start checking them and countering them, and he just suddenly seems to see every kick coming and knows how to deal with it. But I think those kicks and the movement are going to let Wood rack up, I mean, possibly some fight-altering damage early on. I mean, I don't know what Jourdain's late game looks like if he's crippled, and Nathaniel Wood is going to kick him in the calf. He's a modern MMA fighter. He's going to calf kick him a lot. Could be a serious factor, and hinder Jourdain's ability to press forward. So I don't know. And I also don't entirely know. I mean, the best example of Jourdain having to be the aggressor against a mobile fighter was, I mean, I guess there's Feely.
Feely?
Yeah, and then I was like, the most recent one is like Andre Ewell, who's like nobody's idea of a consistent outfighter. Where he just kind of took over after about 3 minutes completely. So I'm not entirely sure. Again, I don't think Wood has the best footwork in the world. It's very leapy. I think you can definitely, if you pressure hard enough, force him to make some bad steps, to corner himself, to run straight backward. He will also run straight in and just eat a counter flush. I mean, he ate some huge shots even in that fight with Charles Rosa. He just ate some. I'm trying to remember what the one was that kept landing. I think it was Rosa's left hook, or like overhand left, that he kept just like throwing away the right and like just running through and landing the left hand. And it surprised Wood on a number of occasions. Didn't hurt him at all. But but I don't know. I just don't know how Jourdain deals with this kind of opponent. Like a guy who is going to be actively fighting you, but will also be kind of just denying you the sort of close range fight you're really best at.
Yeah, because I think that was the real, the difference maker, the clincher, so to speak, was against Burgos, was the fact that Jourdain has become just a terrifying clinch fighter.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think it's going to be an interesting kind of line to walk for Nathaniel Wood, because he has to be able to, I think, basically what we're describing is that he has to, fight a mobile outside and attritional game, whilst avoiding getting put into the clinch with Charles Jourdain.
Yeah, but he's also got the wrestling. Kicks and wrestling, a fantastic antidote for a guy who, I mean, really, this looks like a fight where Charles Jourdain needs to be hyper aggressive at one point or another to win. And Jourdain's wrestling is bad. Like it looked better again against Shane Burgos. He just took him down. He got incredible positions. Like, it seemed like a horrible sign. Round 3, the man stuffs like 8 takedown attempts easily. He's very strange. He will figure anything out given enough time. But, Wood can hit tricky takedowns. It seems like a really obvious move to go for that Jourdain I still don't expect to see coming. That if you get a guy who just has to chase you, you just run him into a shot. And and bank time. I don't know. I'm really not super confident who wins this. Obviously, I like Jourdain's my guy, but I think there's a lot in Wood's game to put Jourdain in frankly a typical position for him where he just like has to win the third round huge, and he might do it, but it's a tough position to be in, and Wood is a very, very consistent fighter. He will make some mistakes, but he will kind of always get back onto the path he set out to follow at the start of the fight.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know who to pick.
I mean, I think I'm going to pick Jourdain. I think his style will really blossom when he can be a physical bully.
True.
In a way which he just isn't most of the time in this division. You saw that against Andre Ewell, right?
Oh, yeah. He styled
that was less of a slow starting and more of just a brutal thrashing. I just think that, admittedly, Nathaniel would beat him no less convincingly. And in fact finished him, I think. But, I just think, given that improvement that we saw in his clinch game, meaning that it's now, even if you can take him down, it's very threatening to be in the clinch with him without successfully taking him down.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to pick. I'm going to pick Jourdain. I think Wood has to walk, a fairly careful tightrope out there, and I'm just not sure he can without Jourdain really coming for him.
Yeah, and it is especially Wood's own tendency to want to mix it up in the pocket. It seems like there's going to be moments where he's probably going to get into serious trouble. Like it's not actually unlikely in my mind that Jourdain finishes him.
Oh, not at all. I mean, again, I think Wood is actually going to be very tough at this weight class.
Sure.
I think I think those points where he's been stunned or hurt at bantamweight are probably going to be lesser here. He strikes me like he fights like someone who has a tremendous chin, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, he's got the confidence of a guy.
Just been a weight class. Might just be a weight class thing. But when he's hydrated, he can take shots better. So yeah, I think it's going to be a fantastic fight, but I do favor Jourdain.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, I will just ride your vote of confidence then. Even though I really do feel like this is a fight where maybe even if Jourdain does win, and this is not unlikely, like he has to finish Wood to do it. That could happen. It's going to be great. Fantastic matchup. I get more excited about it the more we talk about it, and that makes it a perfect time to stop talking about it and move on to a break, followed by Demetrious Johnson versus Adriano Moraes. That's right. Yeah. After this.
Financial support is fantastic, but there are other, even easier ways to support Heavy Hands. Perhaps the best is by spreading the word. We know our fan base. You're all cool, popular people with serious social media presences. You're tastemakers and trendsetters. Okay, there are one or two of you that don't fit that description. You know who you are, but no matter what, you can always help us out by telling folks about the show. And you can also give us a positive rating and review on iTunes and Stitcher, things like that. We rely on word of mouth and positive feedback to grow and improve, so thank you very much for your time and your help. Now, back to the show.
Okay, welcome back to Heavy Hands. We're talking about 1FC. Is it the first time we've discussed 1FC on this show?
We must have done it in passing, right?
We must have. Was the No, wait, hold on. I think we talked about the fight that Eddie Alvarez lost after getting cut.
Yep.
And was the Giorgio Petrosian knockout a 1FC kickboxing bout?
That seems a little sad, but
they do a lot of Muay Thai and kickboxing in 1FC.
Might well have been.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, Superbon is their champion, so
yeah.
I think it was a 1FC fight.
That's great. I mean, we've already made our ignorance clear, so we don't even have to pretend that it matters if we find out whether or not we're right about that. Great. Well, frankly, we just, for much of the show's run, it's like, the UFC schedule is what it is. you commit to covering it. How the fuck do you muster the energy to even find out about all the other fights that are going on all the time? We just had very little room on our radar, and our schedule for ONE FC. And, so it's kind of nice here. We get a UFC card that's not stacked, but solid. But with a week between leaves us plenty of room to actually talk about a very good fight from ONE FC, a real promotion that is definitely not a front for any criminal organizations. What did you make of this fight? Of course, it was a night of vengeance for the former UFC flyweight champion, the man who should never have been cut and should have been given all the money he asked for, because he's one of the best fighters on earth and of all time. But obviously in their first fight, frankly, this fight follows almost exactly the same arc as the first fight between Johnson and Moraes, but just longer. It just kept going instead of a weird finish that came out of nowhere in round 2.
Yeah, it's a startlingly similar fight.
Right.
Which is, I guess, the most surprising thing for this for me, because looking back at them, I was I was really expecting. I mean, DJ is such a classically good rematch fighter, as we've said in the past.
Absolutely.
He's someone who's always done better in rematches, and as such, I heard that he won by KO and that he was pressuring Moraes and so on. I was like, wow, we're going to see the differences in how we approach this fight. This is going to look, this is going to show championship quality and adjustment and so on. But yeah, as you said, you were sort of describing it. I was, because we both wanted to catch up on the first fight to remind ourselves. You were describing it to me, and I said, "No, it sounds like this one."
Yeah,
it really does. Like, there's the sort of pace is quite similar. The way it changes is quite similar as DJ ramps up the pressure. DJ gets hurt, around round 2 in both fights. It's just as you said, in one of the fights, it's just that's it. It's over.
Yeah. I mean, both of these fights end with some of the, on the one hand, one of the most just straight up savage, coffin nail finishing blows I've seen, with Moraes it starts as an ugly knockout. Like, if that was the finish, the right hand, it would be a contender for worst knockout of the year, our favorite and hardest to define award category. Actually, no, the hardest category to define is the continued existence of the Charles Oliveira versus Nick Lentz fight of the year, which I still don't know what that actually commemorates, since that trilogy is long gone. But yeah, it's like a weird little clipping right hand, and then Demetrius falls down. He gets stuck in this sort of like underhook, half built up position, and instead of like taking top position or breaking him down or like chopping his arm out from under him or anything, Moraes just gets onto both feet and just knees him right in the face when he's like posted up on one hand and obliterates him. In the second fight, the sweetest revenge imaginable, Demetrious Johnson hits the slickest flying knee you will ever see. A walk-off flying knee KO, which adds even more badassery to the moment. But up to that point, like, he's pressuring Moraes just like he started in the last fight. Moraes catches him with some surprising takedowns. I think most of them came off of caught kicks. If I'm recalling correctly, like there was a clinch knee that got sort of underhooked, like kind of like Metzger takedown. There was a body kick, I think, that got caught, and then he just got ran over. It's worth pointing out that this is Demetrius fighting a man who is at least a weight class bigger than him. Like, Demetrious Johnson is like more solid than you might think. He's a pretty heavily built guy for his size. But Moraes is heavily built and like 6 inches taller, just judging by appearances.
Yes, he is much bigger than him. So I think we saw, I think this is really the development of how DJ's game works at this stage of his career. is that he's not, and is obviously not at this stage in his career going to become like the world's best defensive fighter, mostly insulated by, his foot speed, essentially.
Same as ever.
Yeah, he's able to come in and out of range. His concession is to like lean back away from strikes sometimes and counter.
Skitter back on straight lines. That still happens.
Yep. So so he basically needs his foot speed to protect himself, but this puts himself at significant danger when he's fighting against a much bigger, and powerful counterpuncher. So a lot of his early going is just kicks from range. I think Moraes was able to start picking up on that and countering them either with takedowns or with punches. But once that was happening, that was when DJ could start opening up with his own strikes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the odd things about the Cejudo rematch is that in some ways it barely gets out of that kind of first gear.
Yeah, very strange.
It just stays in that.
Considering how
DJ
the first fight ends.
Sorry, what's that?
Doubly strange considering that DJ is the rematch guy and knowing how the first fight ends.
Mm-hmm.
How do you not build on, maybe that's the curse of the rematch guy. He's like, I gotta change something. But you didn't. You crushed Cejudo in the first fight. Try and do that again.
Yeah. So DJ was able to start building his punches back in and pressuring Moraes more effectively, and he got clipped by a head kick. As I said, I think in round 2.
Yep, due to kind of
you could see it start to wear on Moraes. Just he couldn't tell when the low kicks were coming. He started to get pushed into those combinations more, and he was starting to pull the trigger less on his counters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the body kick as well, the switch up between the left hand and the left body kick. A lot of good southpaw striking from Demetrius in this fight.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of one and done, but in a way that doesn't feel one and done because there's so much movement and feinting. There's so much aggression without letting a strike go that frequently when DJ does let the single and only strike of the attack actually go, it feels like the fourth punch in a combination. I thought really good positional pressure from DJ in this fight. Using his footwork.
And I think, yeah, that's something that he's always been really good at, I think. Going back to stuff like the Horiguchi fight, was even at a relatively nascent point in his career. Horiguchi was someone who really wanted to be able to line up blitzes and basically circle and then get his opponent in kind of the crosshairs and then run at them. But DJ was just able to kind of cut him down again with circular kicks and punching combinations.
Yeah.
I think this kind of lower pace and more methodically building into the style is definitely a concession of the two things that the two things that DJ has to account for, which is that obviously he's fighting bigger people, but also I think just that he's less durable and older. I think one of the, as much as DJ's speed was what people used to, rightly talk up a lot. I think also just the fact that he used to have just an incredible chin.
100%.
Really allowed him to be a very a more fearlessly aggressive.
He was
fighter
impossible to
now.
finish everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the guillotine against Joe Benavidez?
Yep.
Caught in a guillotine for a minute and a half. I'm sure it's probably inflated in my memory, but just legs flailing, just burning energy in the way that only a guy who will not get tired can. Refusing to accept this losing position at all costs and somehow surviving what looks like a locked-in choke for ages. Completely unkillable on the feet. And to me, he looks every bit as fast as he did back then. I don't think he's really slowed down yet.
No.
But yeah, the durability, and maybe it's just that these are big, dangerous dudes he's fighting. Again, Moraes is huge compared to DJ, but if anything has diminished, it appears to be that. Other than that, he really looks as good as ever. I mean, this is like when he fought Tim Elliott. Like, is it shocking to see DJ fight a much bigger guy and actually, therefore, get put in a position where he does end up having to kind of accept and play guard for periods? That's not atypical. In fact, his guard looked great in this fight. I mean, he won the first round of this fight largely off his back. A lot of the most effective stuff he did was off of his back and didn't allow Moraes to get like anything going from top position. He had a guy who was constantly threatening to pass, but he had to expend so much energy trying to get past DJ's guard that like by the time he finally postured up and let a strike go, I really like this. DJ would get to like half guard or whatever. He would see the strike coming and would, despite being on the bottom, would crowd Moraes to take the strike away. He would cover up with one arm and just sort of curl and hunch into Moraes so that there wasn't enough room for the shot to actually get off. I can't actually recall. There's maybe one elbow that Moraes landed that was solid from top position. Otherwise, I mean, DJ split his eyebrow open with an elbow in the first round. One of those slick frame elbows. Something about the way he plays his guard, and I think the fact that it is in this promotion where guard becomes, I think, a much tenser and closer to what it originally was, like a really important defensive position, because once you give it up, the guy might knee you in the face.
Yep.
It just felt like very old school Matt Hume style MMA.
Yep.
The way he played his guard, right down to, I think of like Josh Barnett was the first guy I ever saw landing those frame elbows against Randy Couture, is what comes to mind. Where you shove the guy away, the guy who doesn't want to posture up because if he does, he might lose control of you, and then you just let his head drop into your elbow. I think that was the kind of shot that. Actually, no, it was like a variation. It was using the leg, to drag Moraes' head into the elbow. Moraes' head was stuck behind DJ's knee, and he used it like a collar tie to pull him into the elbow, to break his posture. Sick.
Nice.
Very cool work off of the back.
Yep.
But yeah, the pressure striking is I love when DJ gets into that mode.
And we got some parts where he was trying to walk his way into the clinch, and he did get overpowered at points.
Yeah.
Again, we did also get some classic DJ clinch striking.
Beautiful knees.
Which I think probably contributed to Moraes' pace dropping, because he was landing some, he was breaking his posture and then landing those nasty knees under the ribs as he was using his like peeling Moraes' arms up and bracing his head under his chin, and then landing the knees under the ribs. Look, it just looks horrible.
He has some of the most like legit Muay Thai clinch knees, in that most people get to a clinch and they think the thing with a knee is that you throw them really hard, and you can throw them really hard because it's a knee. DJ throws them accurately, the way you should throw a different kind of body punch. I mean, it's good to hit the body hard. You can really unleash and let all your power go, but accuracy is very important for the body. You got to hit those vital spots, come under the ribs, hit the squishy organs, etc., etc. And just like in the first Cejudo fight, DJ is so good at that. At just hitting exactly the spot you do not want him to hit.
He doesn't just bring it up. He turns it over.
Exactly. It's like a short range round kick that really drives through with the hip. There's like a snap at the end of the knee from that hip thrust and the turn. Yeah, really nice. And a couple body punches. Really nice. Like, again, this isn't like, there were like very few jabs. When the jabs did appear, they were southpaw jabs that were like counters or interruptions in range. They were cool, but largely what played the role of the jab was footwork and feints. Those were the setups and the tools that kept Moraes reactive. And then on that note, the finishing sequence, very, very slick. Demetrius, I think he maybe starts in southpaw, and he feints a kick. This is a thing he sometimes does that gets him into trouble. Like, it did a couple times in this fight where he kind of just like floats in with his knee up.
Yep.
And he's not quite ready for what's coming back yet, so then he does that weird leaning thing and flaps with his hands and he gets hit. In this instance, he was ready for what was coming back. Came in with that knee, fell into an orthodox stance, suddenly in range, slips the anticipated left hook from Moraes, and then just straight down the middle with a counter right hand. Perfect use of the defense to create an opportunity. And there's something so cool about the sort of swaggering pressure he keeps on Moraes as he's like stumbling and dying.
Yeah, because he's like, is it now? Is it now? Is it now? Is it now? It's now.
Right?
You know, you can see he's just like stuttering forward, looking for the exact moment, and then he just knees Moraes, whose head just goes kind of disappearing into the cage, like it's just, you know, like it's gone down a hole.
Yeah. Yeah, he like stays right on top of him. Moraes is stumbling. All he wants, and his brain is going completely on instinct, is some space, a moment to recover. And DJ stays right on top of him. He shoves him at one point while he's falling over, just to keep him falling back towards the fence. And again, one of the slickest flying knees. Flying knees are often devastating, and this one was. But they don't often seem like a perfect precision strike.
Mm-hmm.
And this was excellently timed.
And it's the way he knew it as well.
Oh my God, he just walked away. He didn't look back once to see if Moraes was getting back up. How cool is that?
Yeah. It's so awesome. Like, you know, there's a kind of weird symmetry to it, you know, not just in the sense that, you know, Moraes knocked him out with a cool knee, and then he got his revenge, but also just that DJ got started fighting people who are much bigger than him.
Yeah.
And that now he's in, you know, the house money portion of his career, where, you know, anything he gets is essentially kind of any legit win he gets is kind of both a surprise and just incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
That he's kind of back to it, you know?
Yeah. And
back
he
to
is
fighting these guys.
And I love seeing this side of DJ too, because like it was always kind of a myth that DJ is like this, you know, overly careful, unexciting fighter. It was partly just people's UFC fans. I don't want to use the word people too loosely. Inherent bias against little fighters that made people like assume his fights must be boring, when in reality, like, if Kyle McLaughlin were still alive, he'd tell you Demetrious Johnson versus John Dobson 1 and 2 are both fantastic fights. Demetrious Johnson versus Joe Benavidez 1 and 2, incredible, violent. And this is a great fight to showcase like the fact that has always been true, that Demetrious Johnson is a savage.
I mean, he has everything you would want from a GOAT's career. He has incredible wars. You know, that Dodson fight. I mean, if you haven't watched prime John Dodson for a while, he is absolutely shocking to look at. I mean, particularly in that title fight. That was John Dodson's, you know, Chad Mendes, Jose Aldo moment where he would never look that good again.
Correct.
Or, you know, he would never look that good before or since. The combination that he drops DJ with is one of the most filthy things I've seen in MMA.
Yeah.
It is so fast. It's like Demetrious Johnson is a very fast man, and Dodson puts him down with 4 punches before he knows what's hit him.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible wars, and just some of the greatest finishes we've seen.
Honestly,
you know,
beautiful finishes. Finishes that make mixed martial arts look like actual art.
Mm-hmm. KO submissions. You know, the finish of Joe B. This, the obvious,
Ray Borg armbar.
Ray Borg armbar.
Yeah.
the finishing of the otherwise utterly unkillable Henry Cejudo.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, what more can you say? I mean, he's just fucking incredible.
He is. Yeah, it's good to get a chance to talk about him again. When he's unfortunately been sort of just thrust out of our view by the fact that we just cover UFC shit all the time. It's good to have a chance to revisit and be like, oh yeah, Demetrious Johnson's one of the best to ever fucking do it, and is an incredible technician and one of the very few genuine all-terrain fighters who can mold himself to so many different kinds of fighting and so many different types of opponent. And most importantly, a beast who likes to beat people up and hurt them. That's the thing. Do not forget about Demetrious Johnson. And if you've forgotten, watch the other fights we mentioned and then watch this one. Demetrious Johnson likes to cause pain. He's a nice man, but he's a fighter for a reason, and he really is a true fighter. It is
the Dobson fight, the rematch, right, where he gets kicked in the balls.
Yeah.
And then
he's like,
the ref tries to stop the fight, and he's like, no, get out of the way. Yeah. Get out the way.
He literally he becomes very rude. He says, get out of the way. He does not even want to take a break because he knows he's in the process of breaking this man, and he wants to get immediately back to it. It's supposed to hurt, ref. You know? This is fine. Mm-hmm. I'm winning. Yeah, he loves it. And, that's what I've always liked. There's also the fact that DJ has this, and there's a bit of it here. I think he's a very nice guy, but he does have this sort of innate condescension of someone who just knows he's the best at what he does. Mm-hmm. That one of my favorite moments in his career was after beating Dobson in the rematch when he was I think the words he said were he shook Dobson's hand and he said, "Good job." Something about the way he says it and the way that fight plays out where he's just cruising to victory and just beating Dobson up worse and worse with each round. And then he says, "Good job." Dobson knows he didn't do a good job. Why would you say that to him? There's a little bit of that here too. I think he's trying to be nice to Adriano Moraes, but he's also patting him on the head, and being a little too sort of buddy with him immediately after murdering him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like the evil side of Demetrious Johnson, and don't forget it.
Yep.
Okay.
An essential part of any great, really.
It really is. Absolutely. You have to have at least a bad person in you somewhere to be good at fighting. And Demetrious Johnson, he hides it well, but he's a bad man.
Yeah. There's none of the other GOATs are quite not just the all-terrain fighters, but none of them the all-terrain finisher that he is.
I mean, my God. He's a genius. He really is. He's one of a kind.
Yep.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this week's Heavy Hands. Longer than I thought it would be, but frankly, we had some very good fights to discuss, and I'm really glad we got to finish with what looks like a fantastic matchup coming up, and what was yet another performance in the incredible career of an all-time legend. Coming up after this, we are going to have UFC 279, is it? That's right. The long-awaited.
Is this the bad one?
Yeah.
Tell me it isn't the bad one.
It is.
Oh.
It's the bad one. Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz. Tony Ferguson versus The Leech. Okay, maybe that's all right. Daniel Rodriguez, Kevin Holland. Hey.
The fight of the card.
That is honestly the fight of the card, with little competition. That and Hakeem Dawoodi versus Julian Erosa. You got to go to the undercard to get the actual good shit on this card. But, yep, that's coming up next. So we'll hit you with that next week, and at some point it will end. Until then, find Phil on Twitter at EvilGregJackson. Find me at Boxing Bush. Head over to our Patreon. Coming in just under the wire by the time you're hearing this episode. That promised commentary of Morales versus Pacquiao. And yes, until next week, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And if you came here for the finer points of face punching, you came to the right place. This has been Heavy Hands.